Hello everyone, this is Michelle and welcome to this process video using this lovely sketch for my Creative Scrapbook September limited edition kit. And so the sketch has the pictures in the center and then the title down below the pictures and then some clusters up at the top left corner and then around the photo. And so I cut out my title already out of one of the Summer Porch collection. This kit is full of lovely Summer Porch 49 and Market pieces. And I want to highlight my title just a little bit more, so I'm going to outline each letter in black. So that's what you can see me doing here. I also want my title to be a little thicker. So I've cut it out in white. I cut it out an extra in the polka dot because I wasn't sure how my outlining would turn out, but it worked okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stack these with the outline on the very top. And then I'm going to use this blue. It's a really pretty blue with a little bit of a white stripe through it, one of the Heidi Swap papers, to create like a little bit of a shadow. All right, so at the top of the layout of the sketch, it has a pattern paper across that. And so I'm going with one of the UPC strips that is included in the kit. And I am also going to use cheesecloth under it. I didn't want to use one of the red pieces of paper. I'm really trying to stick to blues and greens. And so I'm using cheesecloth as the pattern paper underneath the pictures and then at the top of the layout. So one thing I'm struggling with is that it just feels like I have too much paper at the top. So you'll see me after I get these two strips distressed a bit. I'm going to stare at it for a couple seconds and then I'm going to decide to cut off the top portion of that pattern paper. And so I've cut off like an inch and a half, I believe, and I'm going to adhere it to the bottom. And that helps my layout move up a bit because it felt like it was a little bit draggy and I didn't like that. So, and then I'm just going to deal with that cut line. You'll see in a little bit how I handle that. Okay, so time for a little bit of stamping. I have this little verbiage stamp in my stash. I really like this little stamp. It is a little bit more contemporary feeling. So for those times when you don't feel like a vintage feel, this one works out for me. And so I'm going to stamp it there at the bottom right, underneath my cluster, and then on the upper part of the left, as there's going to be a cluster over there as well. And then I am taking, I believe that is Seedless Preserves Distress Oxide. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this stamp from my stash. I think it's supposed to be bubbles, maybe. I'm not sure, but it kind of has that berry feel. And so I wanted to add just a little bit of a different color. And so I stamp it in those three areas. And as soon as I do it on the bottom left, I think to myself, why did I do that? Because I'm not doing a cluster or anything down there. And so it's going to bother me for the longest time, but I work it out. All right, so on my seam, I know I'm going to sew it on my sewing machine, but I want to give it a little bit more color, and so I'm using this Tim Holtz stamp with the Hickory Smoke Archival ink with a to give it some artificial sew lines down there. And then I am just going to take some white Tim Holtz modeling paste. This is the opaque paste through this stencil because I like the way the lines kind of match the lines in that kind of meshy net that's built into the pattern of that paper. So I have my cheesecloth, and so I'm going to take a look at adhering that to the top. And so it's going to be a little bit on the haphazard side, and so I'm just going to stick it down, and then I'm going to trim off the excess. And yeah, so far I am liking how this is working out. And so I have my little strips I'm going to adhere. Now I am going to stick them to each other first and then use 3D foam to lift it up a little bit because I do need to tuck in a little circle element up to the top. That is part of the sketch. And so I am going to go ahead and stick that down. There we go. And so I'm looking at it. I'm going to bring my title back. Um, and I'm liking everything so far, but that sunshine that is built into the paper just feels like it is not popping enough. So I'm going to take my Bokeh white pen and I am just going to give it a little bit more white so it pops just a little bit more. And so I'm ready to start bringing in some other elements. I'm trying to stick to blues and greens, and there are some white flowers. There's these little purple flowers, which are perfect because they're not blueberries, but they certainly have that look to them. Also in the kit are the Little Birdie handmade flowers. These are just so beautiful. I love how they all have different centers and they have just a real natural look to them. Um, so I found my circle element that I'm planning to use up at the top left. So it says Summer Vibes. And I am going to take a look and see what other little white flowers that came in that little birdie. It has a couple little stems. I'm going to use those as well. And there is my cheesecloth. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down as kind of my grounding element. And yeah, I find cheesecloth just to be really easy to use. I think the hard part for me is finding a way for it to, the right layout for it, because it can feel, at least sometimes when I use it, if it doesn't feel right, it feels forced, then I just never like it. But I really like it on this layout. So I have taken one of the UPC strips and cut out with a die from my stash a couple banners. This does bring in a little bit of red to it, but it's so minimal that I felt okay about it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down my pictures. And I should have I did earlier off camera build my mats. I used that same green and white polka dot paper. I used that same blue Heidi Swap paper, and then I added from the 49 and Market from their laser cut elements that blue tab frame to the right picture. And yeah, that little cluster I'm working on now has the other side of that frame that I cut out and used on the other blueberry picture, and gonna let that dry a little bit and start working on that cluster to the left. So very cute little tag with the tree. So I'm really trying to keep with the elements that are blue and green and cream and staying away from red. I did find this tag and cut a lot of it out so it just shows the words. And I'm going to work in a few more flowers and clusters up to that uh, little embellishment area on the left. Now, the little sprig I'm going to bring in here, I looked and looked and I could not find that top flower. I dropped it somewhere and I find it later. So I'm just going to trust that I'm going to find it and glue everything down and just keep moving forward. So I'm adhering my leaves and my paper flowers with some 3D foam and getting those tucked to where I want them so that they can show and have some different levels and some interest. Okay, so I think that cluster is getting close to being done. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the one to the right. I have that blue tag that is mostly going to get covered. That is a good base for everything that's going to go on top of it. I have my leaves. I have a larger flower that I'm going to adhere down there. So I am using primarily um, the Tim Holtz collage medium to adhere my flowers. It does take a little bit for them to dry, but once it's on there, it is on there. So I can trust that it's going to stay. So I realize I've covered up all of my stamping with my seedless preserves there. So I go ahead and add a little bit more above that cluster off to the right, so you can kind of see that. And I am going to add a few more of those bluish purple flowers over on that side. And off camera, I've already sewn my two pieces of paper together. So you'll see that has already been done. And yeah, I am looking at this whole time, I'm thinking about that purple area down below. Do I want to do another cluster down there? I really don't want to. And so I adhere my banner up at the underneath the pictures and up above, and then on the sketch it does have a circle area under the photos. So I'm taking a look, seeing. I mean, these are all I take a go at it, but they're really too small to accomplish what I need them to accomplish with the size of my title. And so then I just decide, okay, my title is going to go down to that left corner, and that will help me feel better about my mixed media down there. And that just feels so much better to me. So I do want to fill up the spot where the title had been a little bit. So I add that bow, I add that swing, and yeah, I really like that. So I have these little buttons that I am going to go ahead and add some string to. It's actually scrapper's floss. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with that from back in the day. It is, it's probably 15 years old. Um, so thankfully, I haven't thrown it away. I'm still using it, and so I'm going to start building that area above that left photo. So I have a little striped paper there. I'm going to let that dry, and while that is getting adhered, I decide to add some squeak sequins, some purples and some blues, and a little bit of bling. Add a couple to some of the flowers, and that has given that a little bit of time to dry. I'm going to add a little word phrase up there, and that tag. And then I am also going to add a binder clip. And so I decided to go with the blue one. There's already a bit of blue up there, but it felt better to have the blue with the green tag. And so the binder clips I had already covered with glossy accents. So they're a bit on the shiny side. I use the green one over to the right. And now I'm gluing down my little buttons. Yeah. And then I think off camera, or at least I don't make you watch me gluing down the sequins, but I do that with glossy accents as well. And so I think I am getting close to finishing up because I am splattering. And so I go ahead and use my Dina Wakley um, gloss spray in white. And I um, like the white splatters, but it feels like maybe I need just a little bit more of something, something. So I decide to add a little bit of peeled paint. Now, this is the Spritz, so it is a little bit more shimmery. And so I go ahead and go with that. And I really like that. So that is my layout. Thank you for joining me today and check out my creative scrapbook. Their link is in the notes. Thank you, everyone.